BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Wake Up to Money from BBC 5 Live.
Morning, welcome to Wake Up to Money. A tax row is brewing if you invest in fractional shares in some of the world's biggest companies. We're going to try and explain why. Also on the programme today, Lego wants us to play more, but is it just too expensive to do so? And who's toasting the biggest wine harvest in the world? And will it make your next bottle any cheaper?
Wake Up to Money with Will Bain.
Yeah, morning. Welcome to Wake Up to Money. Just gone 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, October the 12th. Will Bain with you again today. Thanks, as always, for choosing to kick off the day with us. Yeah, it's not a bad pub quiz question, that wine one, because you kind of would think you knew the answer already. Perhaps we'll get you to text in on that as well. We'll read out the text numbers in a moment, and let us know who you think, which country you think normally produces the most wine in the world and who you think might have overtaken them this year. We'll be explaining all later on in the programme. Busy day as well, lots of markets news around, and of course we're going to be looking ahead to another kind of temperature test for the UK economy. We're going to get GDP figures for last month coming out at 7 o'clock this morning, so we'll look ahead to that with our panel too. Plenty else in the programme for our panel of guests to discuss, who are Carlene Jackson, co-founder of Brighton's Cloud9 Insight digital consultancy that tries to get SMEs to embrace that cloud technology in terms of their storage and data. Carlene, welcome back to Wake Up to Money. Great to have you with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Any guesses on the wine question, by the way? Where do you think produces the most wine in the world, harvests the most wine in the world?
Oh, that's a good question. I would have thought maybe Australia.
Australia. Good guess.
Who knows?
We'll keep the tease going because it's in the second half of the programme. Also with us this morning, Tineke Frika, Senior Fund Manager at Waverton. Tineke, welcome back to Wake Up to Money. Great to have you as always as well.
Good morning.
Want to have a punt on our wine quiz?
Well, I was first tempted by wine I really like, which is France. And I thought, well, maybe just the biggest country, so maybe it's the US, just for sheer size.
Let's just say you're pretty warm with one of the two. One of the three answers between the pair of you. We'll keep that one going. Like I say, if you want to get in touch with us on that or anything else you hear in the programme, the text number is 85058. Our WhatsApp is 08085 909 693. And if you prefer to use social media, we're hashtag Wake Up to Money across the various social media platforms there. We're also going to be talking about waste this morning, electrical waste. Apparently fast tech is the kind of new fast fashion when it comes to the amount we chuck away. So this is things like, and I just don't know whether the two of you have got one of these. I've got a doom drawer of just all the chargers that I can't remember what they charge, but I keep hold of them just in case I find the thing that they need to charge again. Well, apparently we're chucking more and more of that stuff away. Headphones, MIDI fans used in heat waves. And where are they now? Sitting in landfill, sort of record amounts of that waste, apparently. So let us know what you think we could do with that. And do you, like me, have a doom drawer full of all of that kit? You think one day you might find the thing it needs to charge? Like I say, 85058 is the text. The WhatsApp is 08085 909 693. Let's dive in straight away then with that big economic data we're going to expect out a little later today. Because the UK economy expected to grow, well, perhaps analysts suggesting around 0.5% after it grew by 2 basis points in the second quarter of 0.2 basis points in the second quarter of 2023. Results due out a little later this morning, the data, Tineke. What's your sense of what we can expect?
Well, I think consensus, as you said, is 0.2% month on month. We've heard from the IMF yesterday. They think it's going to be 0.5 for the year. So let's see what happens. Last month was bad. We shrank 0.5%. As usual, sort of blaming the weather. August was a bit better, even though doesn't feel like that this morning, does it? So consensus is 0.2%, and this is a careful balancing act, because in order to get inflation down, we need to go through, economic slowdown, but we don't want to slow down too much. So it's a bit like if you run your shower, you want it not too hot, not too cold, right? It's not an easy one.
And so in terms of meeting that kind of balancing act, I guess then, Tineke, what do you think the government will be, the Bank of England, will be watching out for in terms of that rate picture? What would get them concerned here, in terms of either way on that number if it doesn't quite meet that projection, or do you think they'll be relatively comfortable if it is indeed that figure that you're sort of settling around?
Well, I think all the numbers that we're getting are sort of backward looking a bit, but I think they would be looking carefully to the services component because that is about 79% of GDP. 83% of employment. So that, and generally wage inflation tends to follow the service component of this. So, and that is an area that we've seen that it's stubbornly higher than expected. So, it's all economic growth, inflation, interest rates. It's all a lovely trio that's sort of linked.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, bit of luck that we've got a technology services business with us in the form of Carlene. Carlene, how is business going at the moment then?
So the year for us actually started very strong. Then it sort of slowed a bit in the last couple of quarters, but just people are taking longer to make decisions, and I think a lot of that is just people want certainty about the economy and sort of what's happening with interest rates and things like that. Access to money isn't as easy, and so our last quarter is very strong. Might even be record breaking. And into the new year. So the forecast is looking steady, I would say. But I think access to money is difficult. I heard recently in the last week, actually, that in the, I think it was an architectural society published figures around investments in construction being down. So I think a lot of people are struggling to be able to afford finance or be able to access that.
And that's simply that interest rate picture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tineke, the other thing to watch out for in this data often is always the kind of regional variations around the UK. Yes,
and they're kind of always sort of there, and we sort of we touched on construction sort of just now, and we're hearing that from companies that there's a real sort of slowdown, and yes, that does tend to impact regions in different ways depending on how reliant on renewal of financing they are.
Well, it was a really interesting issue that Darshini David, our chief economics correspondent, was speaking to Dr. Swati Dhingra about. Dr. Dhingra, part of the Bank of England's rate-setting committee, and she was warning that the UK economy is still yet to feel the full force of the 14 interest rate rises from the Bank of England, and that she thinks we're only feeling about a quarter of the impact, in fact, of those interest rate rises, and said the risk of stagflation, i.e. no growth and high inflation, was now very real.
The economy is already flatlined, and we think only about 20-25% of the impacts of the interest rate hikes have been felt through to the economy. There's this worry that might mean that we're going to have to pay a higher cost than we should be paying. That being said, what we're seeing in the economy unfold is that there was some resilience early on, because fortunately we didn't see the worst case scenario, which was energy shortages happening in the economy. So we sort of didn't see that really bad case scenario unfold. And as long as those sorts of events don't happen, we would see a flatlining economy, possibly with some weakness, more weakness in growth than, say, what the average bank view is. And that's my personal view. And I think in terms of the cost of living crisis, the energy, food inflation, bits of it will start to ease as international pressures, coming from supply chain disruptions, from the Ukraine war, really sort of leading to really high gas prices. As long as those abate, we're sort of in a more sound position, and some of that you can start to see already come through in terms of producer prices. Mm-hmm. So they're consumer prices, which is what households pay for the stuff that they buy, but then they're also producer prices, which is what firms charge other firms. And those are starting to look like we're in a position where we can hope that consumer prices are also going to start to see a downward trajectory now.
Tineke, interesting, isn't it, to kind of hear various members of the Monetary Policy Committee now starting to sort of talk a little bit more freely about what some of the next steps and what some of the next pressures might be over the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's right. And this lag effect of this rate rise is just really important to think about, because, I think we kind of all, people know it when they need to remortgage their sort of 2 or 5 year fix. And also for companies, they don't need to refinance until sort of their loan falls out. So this lag effect means that the Bank of England needs to be patient, because otherwise there's a risk you tie tighten too much because, we're still lagging. So that is really important, and I think on inflation, it is right that the producer prices have started to come down. So particularly in food, we should start seeing that in actually declining food prices.
Yeah, we saw a little
month.
bit, didn't we? We had some grocery numbers out from Kantar, one of
Right.
the people who look at this a little earlier in the week, and particularly things like you're saying, dairy prices for the actual price now falling rather than the rate of the price going up slowing.
That's right. It's always a bit tricky because food price inflation tends to get quoted in year on year, and then that just means that sort of September falls out, and we care about month on month. Are we paying less for our grocery basket? So, but that should start coming down. We have the energy cap that should start coming down. I do think fuel for our cars is a bit of a wild card given sort of the geopolitical unrest that we have in the Middle East. And particularly the gas price is still a bit higher. So things are getting less bad, but there are some
potential sort of
new
complications,
risks,
some potential hurdles in there. Carlene, you kind of touched on this just before we heard that clip of Dr. Swati Dhingra there, but just has it shaped then some of your decisions this year as a company, that cost of borrowing, that cost of financing?
For sure it has. So we're just about to move office in the coming month, actually. We're just in the final stages of contracts. And the office that we're moving into, we have been given the option to buy it at a fixed price, which has been pre-agreed, as long as I buy it within any time over the next 3 years. And that's a reflection, in my view, of the confidence, you could say, of the owners that the market's not going to take off. Otherwise, they wouldn't be guaranteeing that purchase price, but also access to money and unpredictability around interest rates means it's not exactly the best time to be taking on a new mortgage. So I guess businesses like myself who are in that position will be probably holding tight until there's more certainty around what's the best deal.
You've pressed pause on that already.
So I have the best of both worlds. I get to move into my new place, test it out, and have the option to buy it, which means my investments in that property will give me a long-term return.
And a lot of this, as Tineke was saying, is about confidence of people exactly like you, Carlene. I mean, it seems a very sort of simplistic question to ask, but are you feeling slightly more confident? Do you think some of those risks, as Dr. Swati Dhingra was talking about, perhaps are easing? Do you feel that in reality?
I do feel a confidence. I guess because I deal with, my clients are all in the SME sector. Entrepreneurs naturally are optimistic, and the clients that I deal with are all investing in tech. And I think those clients who are forward thinking about how to digitize their business models, I'm sure they're going to be sort of confident and optimistic about the future. So I create this bubble, you could say, naturally, but definitely other sectors are probably feeling the squeeze more, and the margins are definitely lower. If there's some businesses who maybe haven't put their prices up as much as they should to reflect the increased prices, especially transport and energy pricing. And so they will definitely be feeling the pressure.
Well, that's the thing I think we've always got to remember, isn't it, when we talk economics? You can have all the theory and all the forecasts that we want, but what people really feel is a pretty important factor within it. Just gone 17 minutes past 5 here on Wake Up to Money. Remember, this morning we're talking about waste. Apparently fast tech, kind of the new fast fashion when it comes to that waste, the stuff we chuck away, old phone cable chargers, headphones, mini fans, things like that, apparently piling up at record levels. The UK threw away nearly 500 million fast tech electrical items last year. What can we do about it? What do we need to do about it? Are you terrible like me and store it in many different drawers and cupboards all over your house? You can get in touch. 85058 is the text number. WhatsApp's 08085 909 693. #Wake Up to Money across social media. Tineke, extraordinary deal in big oil today. Main page, right across the main page of the companies and markets section of the Financial Times today. ExxonMobil agrees $59.5 billion deal for shale group pioneer Natural Resources Limited. We were talking about energy, potentially energy hurdles with what's going on in the Middle East ahead. This, an enormous deal in the United States.
Yes, indeed. It's a mere 60 billion. This is the second largest deal that they've done. The one before that is when Exxon and Mobil got together. So that was an $81 billion deal. There've been rumors and talks since April this year. So it didn't come out of the blue. It was anticipated. So as you say, Pioneer is a shale producer in the US. There's a number of key regions, and the Permian is one big one where Permian was the number 2 and Exxon was the number 4. So in combining these two companies, they become the number 1. But it's still 10% of what those fields can produce. And if you're a bit sad like me and you look at the map, well, where are those fields? You can see they're nicely together, next to each other, So you can kind of see, okay, I can see that they can then work together and it'll be cheaper, And we touched on financing earlier, and what we've seen across shale oil producers, that they've been finding it increasingly hard to get financing for their businesses. So,
is that because of various kind of net zero targets and things like that?
A little bit, but also, some of these companies it's a combination. So some of these companies were quite highly, had a lot of debt already, and banks have just become more cautious because the cost of debt in the US has, also doubled, and therefore we need to make sure it gets paid back. And shale is in quite a different way of producing. It's sort of, in 2 to 3 years, the field is empty. It's a very short production process. So it's a bit different from other oil companies where you have an oil reserve for 30 years. So there's a lot more cash coming out for a longer time. So that means if you've got 2 to 3 years to empty a field, you want to have the best energy price possible. So it all makes it a bit more risky. But, this is a huge deal, and you touched on net zero, and I was just pondering because, I tend to look a little bit more at UK and European companies. And if we had a European company spending $60 billion on another oil company, there'd be uproar because we would want that $60 billion to be spent on cleaner energy rather than on similarly dirty energy.
You've kind of led us towards some of the reasons already, haven't you? And it's geopolitics. I mean, shale gas in the US has been having a boom time because of particularly the uncertainty around how we get gas from Russia, Ukraine, because of the war there and sanctions, particularly on Russian gas providers. And the US has been trying to sort of fill up its stocks as fast as it can and ship it to others too, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't quite remember the date, but not too long ago, the US became completely self-sufficient for its own energy, and it started to export excess. So the US has got plenty of gas and oil, and that's why there's kind of different oil and gas prices. So you've got what you pay in the US and what you pay elsewhere. But so energy security, they actually put that in as a reason, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense because Pioneer was already a US company.
And a huge company in its own right as well, as the scale of the deal suggests. I mean, just give us a quick thought, Tenika, on what you think it means in terms of prices globally. As you mentioned as well, sort of a bit of a spike in the gas price the last couple of days because of what's going on in the Middle East. Is this good news for global prices, a huge deal like this?
Well, oil companies don't set the prices, because this is, a global market. So I think with the geopolitics, what we need to watch is any involvement of other Middle Eastern countries, particularly Iran. Any issues with any of the canals, the Suez and there's another strait that I forgot the name of.
The Strait of Hormuz.
That's it. Well done. So those are sort of some of the risks. We obviously recently had a gas pipe to Finland that seemed to, be leaking, and there's sort of a claim, not sure what the cause.
Certainly reported it to NATO to look at it more, which suggests that they think that there might be outside involvement, don't they?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. So energy prices are set globally. what oil companies can do is manage their costs, and in Exxon buying Pioneer, they believe they can produce at much lower cost and therefore make more money.
Interesting. A fascinating deal, and an absolutely enormous one as well. Thanks, Tineke, for explaining that one for us. Let's turn to another company, big company, that's been wrestling with some issues around sustainability, among other things. The toy maker Lego saw its profits fall in the first half of the year as kind of bumper sales that it had seen through the pandemic, people buying kits to use at home when they were stuck at home, began to fade a bit. They have also been, as I say, trying to push into more sustainable bricks. That has cost them a lot of money too, and not always come off. Today, they're launching a bit of a campaign to try and get people to play more, physically play more, mums and dads with kids, brothers and sisters together. So we chatted about that and all the issues around price and sustainability with the General Manager for the UK and Ireland, Christian Powell.
So when we look at our results, we've grown in the first half of 23 on consumer sales, and we've also gained market share in a declining market. So we feel the popularity of Lego products is unbroken. I think in times where, like a cost of living crisis, people are looking to products and toys that provide quality, that provide a brand they trust, and that provide like real play value. And I think that's what we can offer. And that's also, I think, the reason why we've been increasing market share throughout this year.
Price has clearly been a challenge, though, for people, hasn't it?
Yes, so we appreciate that the family budget is probably more squeezed than ever. But we're really glad that we offer a very wide range of products that cater to all audiences, all genders, all passion points, but also have price points starting from below £10 to like more complex boxes. So we think there's a Lego set for everyone in our portfolio.
The problem is, I guess, that some people will think, oh, if we can buy something, say, on Klarna and spread the cost of video games thing, that's it. We've got it kind of once and we've got a couple of games on and we just plonk the kids in front of that. Whereas, buying add-ons or bigger, more complicated sets for Lego, you got to store it and it's expensive.
So, as described earlier, we think play has this ability to really develop the skills that the kids need for the future. So when I see my kids on the weekend just spend time with their Lego bricks or also other toys, free unstructured play, I can really see how this accompanies the achievement-based activities they maybe do during the week.
Yeah.
So we think that's something for parents to consider, that a Lego box can give so much more in terms of play value. We think it's limitless, it's nearly timeless play. And another example, I'm still, like the boxes I played with 40 years ago, are still bricks.
Still as good today, yeah. On that, actually, Christian, because it's the first time we've had you guys on the programme since, you got into difficulty, had a very kind of, I guess, admirable plans to try and use less plastic and less oil-based products in the bricks. Just remind people, when you finally got to the end of the investigations around that, what the problem was and what you're having to do instead now in terms of sustainability going forward of the product.
So we're determined in our sustainability journey, and that, despite maybe some recent press news, that determination is unbroken. So we are investigating over 300 different type of materials to make the brick sustainable and circular in the future. And maybe to pick two examples out of these 300, one is bio-PE. So already in 2018, we introduced bio-PE, and today more than 150 of our elements are made from a sustainable sugarcane-based material, and you will find that in more than 50% of our boxes. So that is something we have implemented already. Now, what's been in the press recently is rPET. So again, 1 out of 300 products we are investigating. And here the idea was to take recycled, for example, PET bottles, make them into brick. And what we found at the end, really testing this for 2 years, is that on the carbon emission side, that is not a solution we think is sustainable for us. But most importantly, we'll take the learnings from this and inject this into our ongoing research on the rest of the materials we're still investigating.
Christian Powell, the boss of Lego in the UK and Ireland. Tineke, either of you Lego fans, particularly back in your youth, or any young people now who you're buying Lego for?
Well, my kids are adult, but I love Lego, and I'm a bit like Christian. I think at my parents' place, there's still a box of Lego I played with. We've kept all the Legos. My kids are adult. We kept all the Lego. I mean, it lasts.
Well, he was saying that he's had his for sort of 40 years. I think he was saying it and kept it and is still using it. Carlene, any Lego fans in your house?
We must have one of the biggest collections in Brighton. I think I've got a 10-year-old son and a 19-year-old son, and both absolutely love Lego. My older son, for many years through the pandemic especially, caught on to the fact that if you bought certain Lego, say Star Wars sets, and left them unopened after they'd sort of finished being sold, that you could potentially, within a short period of time, even maybe a year, see them double in value. There's not many investments that would be that good. But certainly my son, actually, he's, as I said, he's 10. He's had 2 bits of homework this week. One was to make a representation with a drawing or any other sort of modelling or whatever of the ancient Greeks. And he chose to use Lego to build some examples of what the monuments might have been like there. And there's another one which was a museum of him. And he's again chosen Lego to represent all the things about him. So he we have a Lego, we actually call it a Lego room in our house, which is, it's usually scattered on the floor as well.
So
as in many
it seems
boxes.
clear then that you're finding time in your house, because that's kind of what Christian Power was coming on to kind of chat about, finding time to carve that out in the day, both of them. And do they do it together?
Sometimes, actually, especially when a new set arrives in the house, it's hard for us to even go into our own city in Brighton, let alone overseas, without our younger son demanding that he wants to go to the Lego set. He'll ask for your Google Maps and he'll say, "There's a Lego shop in this store in this city. We have to go. There'll be a unique Lego character." But for me, Lego must be one of the most amazing brand marketing and brand case studies in the world, because of everything they do in relation to sort of brand extensions, all the sort of other products they work with, such as Star Wars or even Nike.
Yeah.
And so I asked my son actually last night, I said, why do adults like Lego? And he said, there's a little bit of kid in everyone, and it's their nostalgia.
We ended after the interview, actually, Christian Power and I mean, I don't have Lego in the house particularly anymore, but I did get a little bit during the pandemic because my nephew was very into it and doing a bit of it on Zoom and stuff with him, as we seem to do with that. And it is that, isn't it? It's exactly that. You get it out and it's kind of visceral. It takes you back to moments in the past, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. And it's a lovely thing that you can do with your kids. And you can, in my mind, I love the idea that you can, I think they call it mocks, where they can make their own creations, and there's websites to help you do that. And you can even share your ideas or promote your own ideas, and maybe Lego will produce those as well. And they've even had apps that they've built so you can do stop motion. That's one of my son's favorite things to do. So there's so many amazing things you can do. And when you go to the shops themselves, they're just the most incredible experience, digital experience. If you want to shine a sort of barcode and or QR code, and you can see what the box that you've picked off the shelf is going to look like when it's constructed, or build your own characters.
That's a company, isn't it? As old as, one of the older kind of companies in terms of toys, but managing to move with the times with some of that innovation, isn't it?
That world has eaten up and spit out a lot of young and attractive guys.
This is the story of one of fashion's dark secrets.
I was overwhelmed. I had never seen anything like this.
At the height of Abercrombie & Fitch's success.
This was me being carefully manipulated.
Being lied to, tricked, and traded like a commodity.
Investigating allegations that would take me into a world of money, sex, and power. This is World of Secrets, Season 1, The Abercrombie Guys.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Wake Up to Money with Will Bain.
Yeah, morning. Welcome back to Wake Up to Money. Our panel this morning, Carlene Jackson, the co-founder of Brighton's Cloud9 Insight, and Tina Kafrika, the senior fund manager at Waverton. As you probably just heard in the news there, the situation does seem to be escalating in the Middle East slightly, doesn't it, with Israeli forces potentially massing on the border with Gaza now. As a result, perhaps unsurprisingly, airlines around the world changing some of their flight schedules, cancelling flights to and from some of Israel's main airports. British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, the latest airlines to suspend all flights to Israel because of safety concerns. We can speak now with Philip Collins, an independent aviation expert, used to be head of aviation for East Midlands Airport. Morning, Phil.
Good morning.
Just round up what the kind of latest picture is of who is and who isn't flying to Israel at the moment.
I think it's safe to say most of the airlines that fly into Israel, so the likes of British Airways, the national carriers of most of the European airline countries have stopped flying into Tel Aviv.
And pretty simply,
British Airways is the example.
This is kind of safety concerns, pretty simply, isn't it? I mean, there's
100%,
been
absolutely.
rocket fire in the area of Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, and things like that.
Yeah, I think it actually, even for me, it's quite surprising that British Airways, the story yesterday that the airplane got very, very close to Israeli airspace before it turned around. I think British Airways probably would say that there was a mistake to even attempt that after what happened at the weekend. Virgin Atlantic yesterday also announced that they were cancelling their flights. El Al, the national airline of Israel, they fly daily to Heathrow and they fly daily to Luton. As far as I can see, that Luton flight's actually on its way at the moment, so it is flying. Just coming over Greece at the moment, and the Heathrow is due to take off later today.
Right, so there are still options for people, because that was one of the features of the weekend. One of the spillover features from the weekend was that both Israelis and actually Palestinians desperately trying to get back to the region to be near family, to be close to family, to in some cases get in contact with loved ones again. It's a difficult balance, isn't it, of people desperately wanting and needing to get back to the region, but of course, fairly obviously, the safety concerns of doing that.
Absolutely, and there will continue to be airlines to fly, unless things get extremely bad, where normally these airports will close temporarily, maybe for a week or two, whilst the worst happens. That's happened, in the Middle East before. It's happened places like Iraq and Afghanistan. That happens. That happens sometimes, but the likes of Turkish Airlines, sometimes Emirates, they tend to continue to fly more often. And I don't say they tend to be less concerned, but they are more versed at this. The likes of British Airways, Lufthansa, Virgin Atlantic, KLM, companies like that, they would normally be the first to pull out as a statement of it's all about safety. This is what we're going to do, and we won't go back in probably until after many others.
And I don't want to sort of sound glib, Phil, but we are obviously a business program. Just in terms of the implications on the airlines, I mean, we saw kind of share prices moving. What's your assessment of what the financial impact of cancelling some of these flights might be? Is it minimal?
It's minimal for these airlines, yeah, because if you look at British Airways, of a fleet of over 200 airplanes, it's one flight a day. That airplane.
Sorry, the line just glitched a bit there, and I thought you'd pause. Please carry on.
No, the likes of British Airways, Virgin, it's one flight a day. It's not a huge impact. The likes of El Al, if they were to stop flying, although it's a government-run airline, as is Ben Gurion as an airport, that will be a massive impact because they will literally be not flying anywhere. But the fact that it's a government-run airline means that it's not going to collapse overnight, and there will be things that they can do, things that the government of Israel can do to keep their people in being paid. But yeah, most airlines, as one flight a day, it's not going to impact them in any way, shape or form. Really.
And a quick thought while we have you, Phil, on Closer to Home. Obviously we're still in the investigation stage of what happened at Luton Airport, but your assessment of kind of the knock-on impact from that now.
Without sounding horrendous about what's happened to people's property and what could have happened to people, we're out of the peak period now. Schools are back, so there will probably be car park capacity around the area, both on and off airport. So now that the fact that it wasn't on airport, as in airside, where people were outside on airplanes, where airplanes were, equipment, etc., it shouldn't have a long-term impact. The question is if they can bring that parking capacity back for next summer.
Yeah.
After Easter next year, just to make sure that they don't lose out. The fact that Luton have got this rail link, I don't know if it's actually open or not yet, that goes to Luton Parkway, that should help because they are trying to be more intermodal and get fewer cars onto the site and more public transport.
Yeah, I think a little shudder going through anybody who, like me, who have ridden on that bus very early in the morning trying to connect with your train there. But yes, certainly they are pushing that, aren't they? Phil, thanks very much for your time this morning. Phil Collins, independent aviation analyst there. Tineke, just on those airline shares, they seem to have settled down a little bit now, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they have. Initially, there was sort of a bit of a shock, and not so much. It's more, what broadening might we see, and so far that seemed to, not really happen. So that is positive. So they have stabilized a bit, and as sort of Phil said, for most airlines, it purely flights to Israel don't make a huge contribution to sales. So it's really, if things get a lot worse and other countries are becoming a no-go area.
Yeah. On the high street, really interesting deal. Main page of the Times business section this morning. Next adds 100 million fat-face takeover to its shopping list. Interesting deal, this.
Yes, it is, and it's it sort of really fits with Next's sort of strategy, where they've we think way back they just sold Next brand and some sort of brands that they created, but they've gradually become a bit of a platform for a whole host of brands, so become a lot more diversified. So they recently sort of increased their stake in Reese. So now you could already.
It's been an interesting strategy, this, hasn't it? Buying up other brands and having them within it. I mean, but also mostly that seems to be for the online offering, right, rather than actually physically in the store.
Yes, there's a whole multitude of offerings, because there's certain brands who want to stay independent but can't afford to build a nationwide sort of online delivery system. So Next can offer them that, because Next has got that, and they sort of cleverly thought, well, we've got that and we've got spare capacity, so we can make money by letting other people go through those channels. And then other companies want a bit more. They want a bit more help with their website, maybe a bit more marketing. And I think through selling brands online, Next gained quite useful insights. What is the demand for these brands? And, they've chosen to have some equity stakes in some names. And, till so far, it's early days, and they've made quite a bit of money on the Reese stake, less so on Joule. So Fat Face fits in that, and it makes a lot of sense, because we don't want every company to reinvent the wheel and roll out their own distribution center and etc. So this pooling makes a lot of sense.
Be interesting to see what it means for Fat Face's physical stores, won't it, as well? Just Carlene, just as a customer, I mean, does that kind of appeal to you? One website where you can get multiple brands rather than having to sort of click around?
Definitely. I think it's where we're going, isn't it? Convenience of just being able to go online. I think trust is a major factor for that. And if there's a brand that is dependable, reliable, you can send things back if they're not fit for purpose, and without a sort of debate about it, then it gives you peace of mind. And often you can get things within the next day. And so that convenience factor is really important.
Yeah.
And I think I agree that this shops that have a strong online capability and a strong brand are going to be the winners.
And that delivery network, fascinating element of it as well, because we just want stuff so quickly too. We don't want it to wait 5-7 days for it to come through sort of conventional post. So that those delivery networks, as Tineke is saying, a really interesting part of Next's success, and why Next is kind of outperforming the rest of the market on the high street at the moment there. Interesting tale, isn't it? 5:45 here on Wake Up to Money, and there's a row rumbling about what are known as fractional shares. So these are portions of company stock. So, for example, at the moment, an Amazon share would cost you $179 if you wanted to buy one, so about £145, give or take. Obviously, not many people have got that just lying around in loose change to invest. So buying a share of a share can be pretty enticing, and you can get one for as low as £1 off on some of the big sites that offer them, and there are more and more of those sites, particularly being popular with younger investors. We spoke to a few.
Welcome to the future, nerds. It's 2022, and we can now buy something called fractional shares.
Instead of paying full price of a stock like Amazon for $3,200, you can buy a fraction of it with as little as $1.
You can start investing in Tesla with only $1.
Yeah, pretty popular across social media, as you can hear. As things stand, though, HMRC tax rules prevent people holding fractional shares in ISAs, the saving platforms that you can save up to a certain amount of money tax-free at the moment. And some of the platforms are concerned about that, and they want the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, to look at the rules around all this when he delivers his autumn statement in November. Brian Burns, Head of Personal Finance at the investing platform Moneybox, is here to pick through and explain a little bit more for us. Morning, Brian. Welcome to Wake Up to Money.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
First of all, ISAs then, and how they work. Just set that up for people, and then we'll kind of add in the context of where these fractional shares fit in. So the rules around ISAs currently.
Yeah, absolutely. So an ISA, it stands for an individual savings account. It is basically a tax-free savings account, and it's a giveaway by the UK government to help people to save and invest a little bit more. You can put in up to £20,000 a year, which you can put either into cash or you can put into stocks and shares. And if either of those grow, which hopefully they would over time, all of the returns within that ISA are tax-free and yours to keep.
Right. And so at the moment, HMRC doesn't tax if you've got a whole share holding in there through one of these platforms. You don't face any tax on that.
No, and the thing is, at the moment as well with these fractional shares, HMRC right now has no problem whatsoever with the fractional shares outside of the ISAs. What's happened at the moment is recently it's been reported that HMRC are of the view that fractional shares are not eligible for inclusion within ISAs. The issue really is that when the ISA rules were first introduced back in the 1990s, fractional shares didn't exist as we currently understand them today. So really the current situation is the result of outdated terminology of those ISA rules.
Sure, I get that it's certainly changed, and a lot of the platforms that are offering these are brand new. They're apps and app-based and quick trading and all that kind of stuff. But what I don't quite understand from HMRC's perspective is if it's okay to hold whole shares in companies without having to pay the tax on it, why is it different if you're owning bits of that company? Company share, sorry.
As I say, we would tend to agree with you, and both ourselves and HMRC are looking at the regulation and coming to a different interpretation of those rules, which is absolutely fine. What you've mentioned there at the start, there is ongoing dialogue about this issue between the Treasury, HMRC, and companies such as ourselves. So we do hope to come to a clarification and a resolution in the not too distant future.
But is HMRC's concern that it believes it should have a piece of this, or that just quite simply there aren't enough rules and regulations around this and they want this to change? I don't quite understand where their issue is.
I honestly think it's as basic as them looking back at the regulations, which, as I say, were written about 30 years ago, and just saying it doesn't say anything in there about fractional shares being allowed or not allowed. And they have interpreted those rules of saying, look, because it's not specifically in there, we do not think that they're allowed. Now, Moneybox and other platforms have looked at those regulations and interpreted them differently. But from a HMRC perspective, we believe it to be as simple as them saying, look, it's not in those original regulations, so therefore it's not allowed.
So you guys at Moneybox and others, what are you asking the Chancellor to do and to clarify?
So we basically think it's a relatively simple situation to clarify, and you can update those ISA regulations to say, look, you can hold shares in ISAs or you can hold parts of shares in ISAs. That will clarify the situation. It will remove any ambiguity, and it would do what we are all trying to do, which is create confidence for more people to invest. Because what all parties here are in agreement, the worst possible outcome for this situation is if consumers are put off investing, because we have made great strides in the last 5 to 10 years with the technology providers like ourselves, getting people interested in investing and interested in investing in companies that they're passionate about, building diversified portfolios. So we don't want to have any kind of reversal of that momentum.
And presumably capital gains tax and capital gains tax allowances important around that. Just clarify the rules in terms of fractional shares around that.
Well, this is the interesting thing, because fractional shares, by their definition, are quite small, and you also have a capital gains allowance outside of your ISA as well.
Which is
it's
about
very, very
£3,000, right?
Exactly. So it's very, very unlikely that anybody investing in fractional shares, even outside of ISAs, is really going to have any capital gains to pay because of those allowances that exist. So, as I say, it's a clarification of the rule that we're looking for, just to add in that definition of fractional shares, which weren't around when the original ISA regulations were written, just to have them updated. So that's what we're encouraging the Chancellor to do in the autumn.
And just in terms of this trend, in terms of people of who's investing in them, Brian, do you have sort of breakdowns at the team at Moneybox in terms of, we kind of queued it up there saying it's often younger investors? I mean, that sort of feels fairly obvious because of the scales of the cash involved, but is that borne out? Is it sort of, who is your kind of key demographic?
Yeah, absolutely. It is borne out in the numbers that we see. Now, Moneybox only started offering fractional shares in 2022, so they're relatively new in terms of our offering, but it was one of the most requested features and products among our investing customers at that time. But it's around about less than 10% of our customers currently hold fractional shares as part of their portfolio. But as you can imagine, these are customers who are earlier in their investing journey, and fractional shares really provide like a crucial first step for them to be able to invest in companies that they love and also to build out diversified portfolios, which we know is incredibly important.
And to kind of learn the basics of how it all works at lower risk levels. Really interesting area. Brian, thanks so much for your time this morning. Brian Burns, Head of Personal Finance at the investing platform Moneybox. Tineke, there's a lot in there, isn't there, to kind of unpick, but this is a really interesting new area, isn't it?
Well, and I full-heartedly agree. We need young people to think about their future, and investing and saving is absolutely a part of it. And rules do need to be brought up to date. And what happens if you buy more and more fractional shares, and then suddenly you have one share, and then you can have an ISA? It's all a bit weird. So, I think I think investing in companies is always risky. So diversification is absolutely critical. So if you can't afford that, then you force younger people to take more risks. So I really hope this gets ironed out, and that the spirit of enabling people to invest is put front of mind.
Yeah, it does seem like rules clarification seems a pretty sensible thing. It does seem that everybody all the way round is calling for it. So we'll see whether the row kind of calms down a little bit and cooler heads prevail in terms of doing that. 5:53 on Wake Up to Money. Time for some Taylor Swift. Yeah, as you probably heard in the news, much anticipated feature film of Taylor Swift's current sellout era's global tour kicked off in Hollywood last night. Fans being given free tickets, and it's going to roll out and sold out already. Cinema shows. Carlene, can you kind of believe this? People want to go to the cinema to watch live gigs, something that would appeal to you?
I haven't been to cinema myself for years. So, but I think that definitely, if anyone's got a following, it's Taylor Swift. So I can understand that. Well, there's a lot of cinemas in every city, so why not?
Yeah. What about you, Tineke? Would you go and watch a gig in the cinema?
I think I would. Not sure Taylor Swift. I might be just a bit
not
outside.
Your kind of music?
Yeah, I might be a bit too old for that.
I'm going to see it next
I think
week
it's great.
in London.
It's access, much wider access to people who can't go and can't afford it. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yes, all for it.
The tickets for the actual gig, in the hundreds of pounds. These are kind of £10-12, and the way that camera technology, we know that well here at the BBC, has come along, kind of can feel like you're there. The big screen, the big sound system, I guess it's a good way to get people, and certainly it's another money maker for the artists themselves, isn't it, when you start selling a lot of tickets in big cinema venues?
Yeah, I mean, I hats off to Taylor Swift's commercial acumen. I mean, she really knows how to monetize her music, and good on her.
She certainly does, and she's certainly been shaping different inflation pictures around the world, hasn't she? She's gone along. Let's round out the programme with where we started, actually, with a tease about where do you think the world's biggest wine harvest is, the biggest wine-producing country on the planet. We had a couple of guesses at the start. Tineke actually got it right. So Carlene had said Australia. Tineke said probably France or maybe the United States. It is France, but only just again. This year it's taken back its title after decades of being second to Italy. Anthony Taylor is a partner and director at the winemaker Maison Gabriel Mef, wine producer in the south of France. Morning, Anthony. Thanks for being with us on Wake Up to Money.
Good morning, all.
To a lot of our listeners, it'll have been a shock that France has only just regained this title.
Well, there's always this game that goes on between France, Italy, and Spain to some extent. But basically, if you look over the last 10 years, it's always playing out between Italy and France, basically.
And so why the harvest has been so good in France this year?
Well, it's not so much that the harvest has been good. It's not bad, honestly. It's quite good. But it's because of the climatic conditions that Europe has seen this year. It's caused a big disruption, and it turns out that Italy Italy, which is normally the first producer, if everything is stable and healthy, has really suffered this year from a disease called powdery mildew. Which is caused by bad weather conditions and lots of humidity. So they actually have dropped 21%.
Rather than France kind of growing per se.
Exactly. Well, France had a very good, overall had a very good situation, except for certain areas like the southwest and so forth, which was also attacked by this mildew problem.
Right. You're a little bit further across, aren't you? You're sort of south. If people are looking at a map of France, almost straight down the middle and south, and then up from the coast slightly.
Yeah. The western side, Bordeaux, southwest, and so forth, was quite severely hit by this problem. Whereas the Rhone Valley, where I'm located, is actually quite. It wasn't affected.
Well, and we saw sort of a mixed picture, didn't we? Because I know in different areas of France we're seeing bigger crops than they'd ever seen before. Again, for kind of climatic reasons, right? How is climate change shifting the picture for you at the business in terms of what time of year you have to harvest the grapes, but also the sort of size of the yield that you're getting?
Well, the yield. Remember, it's a natural. It's vegetal product. So I mean, it depends on the vintage. It turns out that this year, if you look at everything, you look at apples and pears and apricots, the crop was enormous. So it turns out that 2023 has been a year where there was a lot of fruit, basically everywhere. But of course, then there was all the effect of these weather conditions, which have severely hampered in some zones. And of course, we had the drought issues, which everyone has heard about. With basically no rain since June.
But for you, briefly, been a decent year.
Yeah, there's a lot of fruit. We have to do a lot of sorting of the grapes after picking to eliminate
to find
any
the best ones and make sure that none of those blights have been
there. The healthy fruit is delicious.
Well, good. Well, that sounds like a bonus when you're picking all of that there. Anthony Taylor, winemaker at Maison Gabriel Mef. Bring us to the end of Wake Up to Money. Thanks so much for listening.
Wake Up to Money from BBC 5 Live.
I just would take my glasses off and the executioner would start.
Can you imagine your job being to help legally kill people?
It's a hell of a thing to watch a man die.
I'm Livy Haydock, and I once heard the wildest story about how the USA ran short of death row drugs and had to find them in the UK.
The drugs used in some of the executions are supplied by a British businessman.
That got me digging into what death row looks like now.
Well, they all died. Nobody complained.
And what might happen to it in the future. This is Killing Death Row from BBC Radio 4 with me, Livy Haydock. Listen first on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio,